Hello and welcome back to the Bright Light Wellness YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being here and joining me. Today I want to do a material medica. I want to talk about a homeopathic remedy called Nat Mur or Natrum muriaticum. And Nat Mur, for short, is just a remedy actually made from salt. So it's the remedy made just from salt. It's a mineral remedy. Homeopathic remedies can be derived from minerals. They can be derived from, diseased tissue like nosodes. They can be derived from animals, and they can also be derived from plants. But Nat Mur happens to be a mineral. It is salt. Okay. So I want to chat a little bit about the Nat Mur constitution and if you're in a Nat Mur state, what you might look like. Okay. So Nat Mur people are very closed. When someone is closed in when I'm doing an intake with them, always want to consider Nat Mur. So closed, I mean, it's like kind of pulling teeth to get information out of them. They don't open up and easily share. They're not like a phosphorus or there's other remedies who are just very kind of like open and willingly share and like they're closed, they're more shut down. This is kind of how their nervous system responds to stress and to issues. They, like some people's nervous system, they become more clingy and they become more needing support and they become more wanting to be around people and company. Not Nat Mur. If they're stressed and if their system is out of balance, they're going to be more closed, shut down. They want to be in their room. They want to be away from people. They don't want to be with company. They want to be by themselves. And they're also very aggravated by consolation. So if you try to console them, they're going to be they're going to be more annoyed with you. Like they don't want your consolation. They want to process on their own. Consolation aggravates a Nat Mur. Um, and they are very deeply affected by grief. Nat Mur is one of our main remedies for ailments from grief. And when they have a grief, they will be sad, but they will not weep. So this is ailments from suppressed emotions. So they will not let it out. They can't, the grief gets stuck and they cannot express, they cannot let it out. And then they develop pathology from this and they become very closed, they become very shut down, and they don't express. They're sad, but they don't weep. Okay. A lot of times a person who's been in a Nat Mur state for a long time can't remember the last time they cried, or they don't weep, but they feel sad, but they don't weep, or they're depressed and they don't realize that they're actually depressed, but they're depressed and they don't actually express the sadness. Like when I was depressed, I had chronic depression for a while after I got really sick. And I would cry. I would cry and cry and cry. I would like sit on my kitchen floor and just weep and weep and weep. That is not Nat Mur. Nat Mur is going to be very closed and shut down, and they will have ailments from grief and ailments from suppressed emotions. They shut down their emotions. They close off. Okay. Um, this could also be from disappointed love. So it could be grief from disappointed relationships, or, a breakup, things like that. It could be a death. It could be a loss of a job. It could be a loss of a family member. There's lots of different grief scenarios. Any ailment from grief where the person is more shut down, Nat Mur is a good remedy to consider. Um, they can have hysterical weeping in some cases. Like you might see this involuntary hysterical weeping, but it's more likely you're going to see this more shut down, can't weep. They'll be averse to company. They'll want to spend a lot of time alone. That will ameliorate them to be alone. They might dwell on past humiliations and grief. So at night, when they try to lay their head down and go to bed, they're actually like ruminating on the past disagreements or the past griefs that they've had, and they're like can't fall asleep due to this whole situation. They are fastidious, meaning they're very perfectionistic, especially when it comes to their health, and their health issues. They become very rigid and dogmatic in their health routines because they have anxiety about their health. So they become very rigid and dogmatic about it. But they also can be fastidious about anything in general, like keeping things neat or um, being late. They don't like to be late. That's a really good one for Nat Mur. They don't like to be late. They like to be on time. That gives them anxiety. And they like to keep things clean and organized and neat and just in general, like in their work, right? All these things, but they usually have anxiety about their health and they're fastidious and rigid about their health routines, about like taking supplements or what they could eat and all the things. They always want to be on time. They can be a little bit compulsive with that. They can be perfectionistic. They like things done perfectly and in the perfect order. And again, they're adverse to consolation. They don't like consolation. They can have fear of robbers. In fact, that's one of Nat Mur's biggest fears is fear of robbers, like people breaking into their home at night. So they'll like my one son, I've given one of my children Nat Mur, but and a couple other remedies can have this fear of something bad happening or robbers. But they would like compulsively have to make sure and check that the door was locked at night. Like that's a Nat Mur symptom. They can also have fear of dark, storms. They can be kind of hypochondriacal about their health, like they're anxious about every little thing about their health. They definitely have anxiety about their health. They can have claustrophobia. They can be insects, germs, heights. These all can be fears of Nat Mur. So they are a pretty fearful remedy or anxious remedy. They're very sensitive to noise and music. Music can actually ameliorate a Nat Mur. They can make them feel better. It can help them feel some emotions, and then that might help. Um, they're very like closed and shut down, but when they drink, that actually like brings them out, brings their personality out, right? A lot of them bite their fingernails. Nat Murs tend to bite their fingernails. Just turning the page, moving my light. They are really warm-blooded and aggravated by heat. Okay. So, sorry. So they are typically tend to be a warm person that is aggravated by heat. And they are usually aggravated from the sun. They don't really, the sun can aggravate their symptoms, especially the headaches of Nat Mur. Nat Mur is big for headaches from sunlight. And this headache is like will start at 10 a.m. and then can go on for the whole day. So they have headaches from sunlight. They're worse from sunlight. They can be worse at the sea or better at the sea. That depends. They can get vertigo in the sunlight, but they are worse from sunlight in general. Migraine headaches that last from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So they last all day, these intense migraine headaches, and it feels like a hammer in the head. It could be headaches from grief as well, but they're worse light and they're worse sun and they're worse reading these headaches. Nat Mur is really good for hay fever, which is like allergies just in general, and especially in patients who kind of like are all stuck in their head, right? And they have like egg white runny noses, and they get like colds with lots of sneezing. They can get herpes around the lips. That's a very common Nat Mur symptom, lots of herpes around the lips and cracks in the lips, especially at the corners of the mouth. This can be a Nat Mur symptom. Nat Mur also has lacrimation of the eyes. So like eyes can tear, especially in open air or in wind. That's a common Nat Mur symptom. And a lot of children, you'll see this in, they have this kind of transverse line going through the lid. The upper lid of the eye, you'll notice this in children. There's like a line going through their upper lid. So that's a good way to check for Nat Mur in your children. Nat Mur is really good because it's salt. It actually is really good for the thyroid, especially in cases of hyperthyroidism, more likely to be indicated for Nat Mur. And they can have goiters. So this would also be a good indication for Nat Mur. That all these things I'm saying, you have to fit the totality of symptoms to give Nat Mur, right? And you should always really see a homeopath. Don't just willy-nilly give it. But these are some good indications for Nat Mur if you're fitting all of these pictures. They can have a sensation of lump in their throat. They're not expressing what needs to be expressed, right? So this is how it's coming out in the mental emotional is coming out in the physical, the thyroid issue and not expressing what needs to come out. Um, they crave salt. It's a mineral remedy, like made from salt. So they crave salt, but they also crave sour and lemon, like they could actually like suck on a lemon. Some of them crave like burnt food. This is actually one of my cravings. I like burnt food. And they're very much usually adverse to fat, like pulsatilla. Pulsatilla is also the other remedy that's commonly adverse to fat. So they don't like fat. So they're not going to eat the fat on the steak. They're not going to eat the skin on the chicken. They're not going to eat fatty foods. Like they don't like fatty foods. It makes them feel worse. They also don't like slimy foods or foods that are just too rich in general. And they don't like chicken, Nat Mur, a lot of times. They can have Nat Mur can have some issues on the hormonal sphere when it comes to just painful intercourse or dryness in the vaginal area, especially. And many women who need a Nat Mur have aversion to intercourse or aversion to sex. This is very similar to sepia. Sepia also has this. You want to compare sepia. Um, Sepia and Nat Mur can be easily confused because they both have aversion to sex and painful intercourse. They both do not like consolation. They both can be closed and shut down. So you want to compare those two remedies. But Nat Mur's root cause of why they're closed and shut down is usually some sort of grief, okay, which is expected. It's affecting the hormonal sphere as well, of course, but the impetus is usually some sort of grief or disappointed love, being sad and unable to weep, where sepia can cry, and they're more of their trigger is more of some sort of hormonal imbalance. Like say they never been well after having their child, they develop postpartum depression, and sepia is adverse to their children and their husband as well. I think I have a video on sepia, so you can go check that one out. But yeah, aversion to intercourse, especially in closed women who are emotionally shut down and due to some sort of grief. They can have asthma that's worse in the evening, palpitations worse that are lying on the left side. So when they lay on the left side, they get heart palpitations more. And yeah, they also can have back pain, which is also, I think sepia has this same symptom, but like back pain or lower back pain where they actually feel better lying on something hard. And they can have insomnia. Their insomnia is due to the griefs and these past things that I was saying before. So they lay down in bed and they want to fall asleep, but they're thinking about all these griefs or disagreements or things like that of the day, and they sleep on the left and they dream of robbers. So that's Nat Mur in a nutshell. And I really wanted to come on and chat with you about this remedy because I have seen it really be so successful in shut down people with emotions that are shut down. So I wanted to share that with you. And it's really a good support for helping people move through grief. I think stuck, stagnant emotions are really one of the main root causes of chronic disease. And when you're not expressing, your body will you're repressing and your body will find an outlet. Like it'll find an outlet with the painful intercourse. It'll find an outlet with the thyroid disorder. It'll find an outlet with the migraines. It'll find an outlet with feeling like a lump in your throat, like you're not expressing, right? You got to let this stuff, it'll make a goiter, right? You have to let it out. Actually, Nat Mur, I don't know how I missed this, but they're typically, oh, I forgot two really important symptoms. Nat Mur is typical for constipation. They are typically constipated, but there can be colitis also, like diarrhea from Nat Mur as well. And they are extremely thirsty for large doses of ice cold water. So they drink a lot of ice cold water. They like just want to literally, they worse in the sunlight, but they want to drink tons of ice cold water all day and all night. So another good Nat Mur symptom to look for. So the reason why I wanted to talk about Nat Mur is because I wanted to share a personal story. And this is the story of my oldest son. So my oldest son, of course, we move in and out of constitutional layers, okay? And we inherit these constitutional layers from our ancestors, so our parents and so on and so forth. And we kind of like are born with these blueprints, and then there's triggers in the environment that will activate different constitutional layers within us. So when he first took homeopathy, he was in a very phosphorus state. Now, a very phosphorus state is also thirsty for a lot of ice cold water and can be constipated, and they desire sweets, and they have aversion to eggs, and they are very anxious, but they're not shut down. They're anxious and they want to be around people. That actually makes them feel better. So they desire company and they desire people, and they're more anxious when they're alone. And that was the remedy. And they have a lot of bloody noses, especially on the bright red bloody noses on the left side. And they have fear of the dark, and they have fear of all kinds of things. So this first remedy was phosphorus, and it did amazing things. And after that, he developed some acutes, and his anxiety went away, and he had some aggravations of bloody noses, and he really healed that up. And the reason why I'm explaining that is after some time, we had some acutes that we had to address, right? And then a couple years later, anxiety showed back up in him again, in a totally different way. This time, hold on one second. This time, the anxiety showed up it showed up in, hold on. My dog's barking. So this time the anxiety showed up in more of like social anxiety, not wanting to be around people, very opposite of before, where before his anxiety was, oh, I need to be around people. They make me feel safe and secure, right? This is the nervous system is showing up differently now. The nervous system is showing up now. I want to be alone. I want to be closed. I want my space. I want to sit and listen to my music. I want to stay in my room. I don't want to come out to dinner. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to be around people. Totally different type of anxiety. And even though in the same child needs two completely different remedies, right? He needed the phosphorus at one time in his life where he was extroverted and his anxiety felt better around people. Now, this time he's closed and shut down, and his anxiety is worse by consolation, worse by being around people and wanting to just go inward and not share at all and close and shut down and just listen to music all day. And that's what we were dealing with. And he went through a very tough period where he wouldn't go to school, and he wouldn't tell us what was going on. And I come eventually to find out that there was some big grief that happened. So again, this is a trigger that caused the Nat Mur state was a grief. Somebody who we thought was a friend of his had really hurt him. And he was staying up all night thinking about it, and he couldn't sleep from it, and he became very closed and became very shut down, and he was very hurt by this. And he wanted to, didn't want my consolation, didn't want anybody's consolation, just wanted to be by himself and listen to music and not talk about it. And thank goodness I know homeopathy and I can help him through anxiety again in another way. But again, this is what I mean by homeopathy treats the individual and the unique triggers and the root cause of his shut down anxiety and social anxiety right now. And and he became very depressed actually as well. It was not only social anxiety, but depression. The root cause of that was this trigger. And knowing that that was the trigger, and knowing that he was so shut down, and knowing that my husband also has a strong Nat Mur side and a strong phosphorus side, this helps me figure out the remedy for him to help him move through this grief, to help him get over this, and to help him and shift things. So I did when I'm giving him Nat Mur, and it shifted it. It took a month, well, 6 weeks, I would say, of him still being even a little bit more shut down because I gave him a high potency. So there was an aggravation and he was more shut down and more closed and needed more space. And I gave him, like, I know, okay, my kid is in a Nat Mur state. He needs time and space to let his nervous system recalibrate, and he needs to not be consoled. He needs to just listen to that music and chill out and relax and move through this in his own way. And after about 6 weeks, guess what state he started moving back towards? Back towards more like this phosphorus, this really more like wanting to be around company and being more open and extroverted and being more around people. And yeah, and still shifting because that can happen because he got a very high dose, and like the shifting can kind of come back and forth, but he's not depressed and he's happy and he wants to be around people again. And it's helped him move through this. So I wanted to share that real life experience about how anxiety can show up in different ways and you can move through different constitutions, right? And this is, so I'm not really just talking about Nat Mur. I'm really talking about how anxiety can show up differently based on different triggers, and how we can shift through these different layers throughout our lives. And not only is that these blueprints, these energetic blueprints, are passed down to us, right? Seeing that my husband has a phosphorus and a Nat Mur side, right? It's just literally it's going to show up in my children. Like, it's no surprise that those layers are going to show up in them. Um, so very interesting. Like, I have a very strong pulsatilla side, and my youngest need pulsatilla for over a year, right? So whatever remedy you are actually is typically usually the same that your children need. And that's why it's also good when you're doing homeopathy is, first of all, we're all quantumly entangled, right? So whatever remedies you take then affects your children or vice versa, right? And it helps us move through these layers. But it's good when you do homeopathy to work on the whole family. And I always suggest that when I'm working with children to work with the parents as well, because um, shifting their energy is going to shift the children's energy and help the body, help the family heal together. So anyway, I wanted to share that story with you, and I wanted to give you some information about Nat Mur and what kind of remedy it is and what it can support. Think of Nat Mur with people who are warm, they have headaches in the sun, they have hyperthyroid and goiters, they like salt, they um our worst consolation, closed, shut down people, perfectionistic, fastidious, all of that you want to think of Nat Mur. And you don't have to check every box to be Nat Mur or to need Nat Mur. You just have to check the totality of your symptoms needs to match. And you really want to focus on the mental emotional. The more I focus on the mental emotional with clients, the more success that I have as a practitioner. If somebody comes to me and says whatever they're dealing with, and they say, I say, do you like consolation? And they say yes. Well, there's no way I'm giving Nat Mur, right? Because that right there is a really big strike against it, because the mental emotional always over trumps all the things, because a Nat Mur's nervous system, homeopathy works on the vital force, and a Nat Mur's nervous system is never going to want consolation when they're upset. It's going to aggravate them. It's going to make them feel worse because they are closed and shut down. And that is the most important part about homeopathy, is considering the mental and emotional piece, especially in chronic situations. But I've also seen it very often in acute situations. My son was not a Nat Mur chronically. Like, he's not a Nat Mur chronically. He went into an acute grief and depression due to a trigger that triggered a Nat Mur state within him, which is dormant due to he has this same kind of blueprint that's been passed down from his father, right? So he went into that state due to it. He's typically, his constitution is way more phosphorus and sulfur. Those are his more, and it's all minerals, which is so interesting. Phosphorus is a mineral, sulfur is a mineral, Nat Mur is a mineral. A lot of times you'll see that people will need like in the family, the same family of the mineral remedies. There's actually a great trio of well, sulfur and calcarb are very related, but then there's also lycopodium, which is actually a plant. So that's not really what I'm talking about. But there are sometimes we'll see these minerals all go together, right? Because they all bounce off of each other and interact with each other, right? Or like, say, for example, there's the pulsatilla, which I'm learning about, is part of the buttercup family. And then that buttercup family is then also related to Simicysfuga, which is also a plant in the buttercup family, and then also related to Staphylos aureus, which is the plant in the buttercup family, and also related to aconite, which is a plant in the buttercup family. So those remedies can be kind of connected in a way, and the person might need a sequence of those. So I'm rambling and giving you more information than just about Nat Mur, but I really hope that this was helpful, supportive. I hope it helps you understand how Nat Mur is on the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and even like the nervous system level. And I hope it helps you understand that we treat in homeopathy, we support the totality of symptoms, and we look for these triggers that help us understand why someone would land in a certain state, and we treat the root cause when we treat these triggers of why so and so is dealing with what they're dealing with. And we then up level a person's health in a great way, where they are now they are like, my children are going to be stronger from this, right? I've seen my oldest son Thomas be able to put up way more boundaries in his life and stand in his confidence more, and that is huge for a boy that's growing up, right? A 15-year-old boy growing up. So, yeah, and you can understand hopefully that anxiety can, when you're talking about just anxiety, right? The Nat Mur anxiety versus the phosphorus anxiety, they look very different. And and this can shift over time within a person. Constitution is not just one constitution that you are for the rest of your life. There's ones that are more prominent, and you will shift in and out of these. And that's why you need a good homeopath on your team to help you see these shifts and what you actually need in given moments. Um, if you're ready and willing and you want to learn more about homeopathy, you can take my homeopathy for acute courses, which is linked below. I have ones on ear infections, I have ones on UTIs, bladder infections, and kidney stones. I have ones on common childhood ailments. I have one on cell salts. Nat Mur actually is a cell salt as well, so Nat Mur would be in there. That's another one to think about. And then there's also I have one on first aid care. So you can take a look at that. You can book acute consultations with me, or if you're ready to really get to the root cause of what's going on in your health, I am here to support you with homeopathy. I take chronic cases, and yeah, I just want to spread awareness about homeopathy. I want you to have that information. And then I also want you to know that I'm here to support you with homeopathy as well. And if you have anxiety or depression or stuck to emotions, suppressed emotions, of course, Nat Mur is a good remedy, but there are many other remedies that can support those same issues: thyroidism, hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism, all these things. Homeopathy is amazing, and it's actually a system of medicine. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. I've been rambling on about Nat Mur for really way too long, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Share it with somebody who you needs to hear this. And if you think you're in a Nat Mur state, or you think you're ready to uproot your conditions with homeopathy, please consider me as a homeopath. You can book on my website, brightlightwellnesscoach.com. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to supporting you and really helping you move through whatever you need to move through and express and become more of yourself. Your true self is really what homeopathy does. So I hope that's helpful. Please like the video, share the video, and let me know your questions in the comments, and I'll catch you on the next one.